Rich black men and big ass chains do nothing for black people. Oh wait, I already did that. Hold on, wait. Rich black men and white women do not go together. How many times do we gotta have this conversation? Y'all out here talking about if it ain't snowing, I ain't going, man. How you leave the crack epidemic to go ahead and jump right back into one, man? Y'all tripping. Every time I see this, I think back to that one Eddie Griffin bit.
Try to make it like everybody's after the white woman. You look at the movies. King Kong after the bitch. You know, the big old gorilla. He had all them fine African sisters seen one white woman and lost his mind. I got him a white. I got him a white. They took his white. That mother swam to New York. They took the on the building. Where's my white? I need my white.
The representation of black people when done by a collective organization of non-black people is always so interesting. There are certain nodes and patterns you pick up on, and there seems to be almost a model played with many of the characters being portrayed in media. So naturally, when gathering notes for the video, I happened to come across this, while blunt, inspiring quote that effectively captures the overarching message and theme of this video. The intermixing of cultures, while seemingly progressive, is predominantly a method of having the initiating party seeking out ways to pillage something of worth that was previously unattainable. Coagulating with said party only leaves you with nothing but an exposed flank for historical misinterpretation, loss of resources, and a morphed identity that has now had its culture handled from those invading from the outside. There is a polarity when it comes down to the overall point and message of that, and while there is truth in its reality and even its absurdity, I made that quote up for the purpose of arousing that very effect. By the time you watch this, the title may or may not be different depending on when you're watching it, as you may have come across a slightly similar title concept by someone named IBI-MP4. Now initially I was upset, because I thought someone got to this video title and idea before me, and the last thing I want to do is make pre-existing videos. Alright, I know FD already made a video like this, but if two goats scale the same cliff, are you going to argue which goat owns that cliff? No! So shut up! How many the coke so white or I got a gun so big buzz have you heard and they all bang, man? Fall back. Anyway. Upon watching MP4's really well edited video, I peeped we're talking about completely different things, and despite the difference in topics, I do recommend y'all watch this video because it's really dope. Because while he discusses the narrative and overall product of Arcane, its relationships, and the great cinematic piece that was episode 7, this video is completely different, which can be summarized as this: stop drinking milk. But do you know what's worse than drinking milk? Having your personal information and data breached, which is why I like to thank the sponsor of this video, Aura. Our personal information is all over the internet for anyone to grab, and if you're like me, you like to keep things close to your chest and secure. That's why Aura ensures you that your data, personal and financial information is free from any and all types of shady or lingering hands. With its data broker opt-out feature, it can help you remove your personal information from various data brokers and such sites where information can be sold to scammers, thieves, and just duplicitous people. With a sweetened deal where every adult on the account with a maximum of up to 5 users get up to $1 million in identity theft insurance to support you in covering any eligible losses and fees with a total of up to $5 million in coverage. And its VPN is equipped with military grade encryption to further protect your internet connection. And knowing the digital climate that we're in right now, you know nobody knows how to mind their business no more. Further supplied with antivirus to protect your devices from malware, password managers that are safely stored, certified data security and privacy, and 24/7 around the clock US based support, cause we all know how important FraudWatch is. So click the link below to get a 14-day free trial and full access to all planned features. Thank you again R for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to it. Look, I get it, love is love and whatever, and at some point many of y'all have been encapsulated by that creme fraiche. Admittedly, it makes me think back to this one bar from Big Sean. Even Kendrick, who pushes his pro-black support rhetoric, cheated on his almond butter queen to take a dip into some sour cream. I ain't judging the man. And even recently, you look at someone like Hilary Duff and think, what the fuck does Dr. Umar know anything about anything? Last time I checked, he's a psychologist. You ain't even a doctor for real. Interracial relationships are so polarizing no matter what race you are. That's because historically, there has always been a very large stigma towards the very practice, especially concerning black people that marry outside of their race into other cultures, commonly white society. With the reality in knowing no matter the presentation of how idyllic you wish to make it, the historical conditioning of interracial relationships will always persist as an immediate negative, especially when analyzed nationalistically. Even with the now famous term bunny hopping, which really needs to start being used by people that aren't black, just like the word unk and a myriad of other words within that context, but that's a video for a different day, as we need to start bringing back gatekeeping. Interracial coupling does more than just provide a harmful connotative look within the black community, but it also is one which is intrinsically political and socially economically linked, even if you don't want it to be, especially since we're being represented by the white power structure. As we know, some of the more common talking points in this regard to this subject is, in America, black men are more likely than any other race to have a stronger proclivity to date outside of their race, which isn't true, by the way, more on that later. The race they predominantly marry outside of their own is Caucasian, that is true, and they allocate their resources not to their own communities but to other communities. This is Todoroki. There will always be this lingering stigma between black men that marry white women. Well, any woman that isn't black, but the spotlight burns to its greatest intensity when you snowboard. Because while conformity is not the automatic negative a lot of people ascribe it to be, when you marry into another culture, you are conforming into their customs and norms in some way, shape, or form. As black people in an already fractured communal state that we exist in, the departure from our culture into another one can be seen as playing Benedict, especially when dating outside of your own race was met with punitive actions for the longest time by white society, the same society that orchestrated racial narratives to shame, ridicule, ostracize, and devalue black women explicitly, abuse, and SA them. The sociological notion that white women were both superior in class and race fueled a psychological outlook on how black men viewed non-black women. Despite all this, there seems to be this odd misconception that interracial relationships are commonly accepted or natural in this day and age, which is something that couldn't be any further from the truth. Firstly, they are unnatural, but that doesn't mean it's bad, it just makes it unnatural. Secondly, they are commonly accepted, but not for reasons I like to think. Thirdly, the presentation of them are both extremely disingenuous and are done so to more so prove a point and make a statement about cultural integration and less about how they work and function within a diverse society scientifically and how they're treated almost like an agenda for certain races to continue pillaging from our culture whilst paying homage to it. In the US, only 15% of marriages are interracial interethnic. And in the UK, less than 20% are interethnic interracial. But Western media likes to make this seem a lot more prominent and emphasized than it really is. Because in productions where interracial relationships have a narrative elements imposed upon it, it always comes as a conflict in the form of cultural segregation and then ends with the two individuals and their families getting along and saying kumbaya. I think one of the worst representations of this in recent memory was that shitty Your People movie starring Lauren London and Jonah Hill. A movie about Lauren London, a black woman, falling in love with Jonah Hill's character, a Jewish man. Knowing the histories between the two ethnicities dating all the way back to slavery, I have no idea what they were even trying to achieve with this movie, especially when there were next to no genuine love or intimate scenes between the two. Side note, the story of the fake CGI kiss being placed for reasons of lacking chemistry or anything regarding Lauren London was because of COVID-19 regulations. Because this movie was produced between the years of 2020 and 2021. While it was a movie about seeking to bridge and overcoming the cultural differences and the historical turmoil one group placed upon another, its conclusion was that of a shit mess that felt extremely forced and superficial. However, this, in contrast to a production where the interracial relationship isn't a factor in any narrative structure, there is, once again, next to no display of a genuine sense of affection or love transmitted between the two individuals. The new Sonic movies can attest to this, where Tom and Maddie are in an interracial relationship, but they feel more like roommates than anything. Tom is also a cop in these movies, at least in the first one, and I don't know if there was a level of conscious thinking behind that, but white cops with black women are just all types of wrong for reasons I shouldn't have to get into. Make it a point, we talk about it. Don't make it a point, we still talk about it. Either way, it comes across as superficial and very disingenuous because of that pandering, historical context, and the fact that when they make these decisions in these shows and movies and overall productions, it feels like they're trying to cure racism and everything that it entails by simply saying, hey look, my wife is white, or my husband is black, or my bitch is gay. So like, let's all just get along, and that comes across as extremely disrespectful to all parties involved. I haven't seen anything else by Chris Van Dusen, whatever his name is, Dusen, I don't even care. But if those 2 seasons of Bridgerton taught me anything, is that he needs to stay the fuck back away from anything black related, as we have a light-skinned, tall, muscular black man in 18th to 19th century Britain with small, petite white women. And while this is designed to be void of any segregated clashes, you cannot be any more tone deaf when making this during the Regency era, where the transatlantic slave trade was fueling European economies, and Britain, along with Portugal, accounted for up to 70% of transported slaves to the Americas, marking it as one of the most profitable countries that benefited from slavery. Despite all of this, while in the books race is by no means a factor to the story and everyone is white, Mr. White Man Chris and the screenwriters thought it'd be a cool idea to have slavery abolished in the Regency era Britain, clear any and all implications of cross-culture and interracial relationships, and blackwash the cast. But only blackwash the cast to where lighter-skinned characters play prominent roles, and the most prominent dark-skinned character in the 2 seasons is a nigga who is introduced as a boxer who fights for money, and his wife is light-skinned as shit, but one where there is absolutely no semblance of black culture in these realms, and these people are black cosmetically. Even Lady Danbury says a line in the show where she says something along the lines of, "What our people had to go through to make it here." And I'm thinking, even if slavery was to be abolished about 50 to 70 years prior to the setting of this show, that's not nearly enough time as a collective for black and white people to just get along and let bygones be bygones, sociologically or psychologically, especially politically or economically, but I digress. Once again, tone deaf, erasure of historical implications, misusing resources, and pillaging from one culture to another. Now that's been said, what the hell does any of this have to do with Ekko and Miles Morales? You see, Ekko and Miles are, indeed, Snowbunny lovers. But while within the story one makes less sense than the other, the representation of their relationship it's strange. Especially in Miles' case. Because with Ekko, while there is no Africa in the League of Legends world, Ekko is an African, and presumably there is no relation between how black people were treated in our world versus the League world. So I'm not going to talk about it in that light, nor would it feel right to induce our history in such a fictitious one of this nature. However, and this is something I will touch on in a later video when I talk about the qualities of another certain character in relation to other characters, Ekko does accentuate a lot of physical African qualities, and his character does root itself in environmentalism and freedom fighting ideals, in addition to the fact that he is an exceptional inventor and mechanic. Despite being cursed with the Killmonger haircut with white hair, he is a black character that strayed from many of the other black characters we've seen represented in media, especially in popular media, and even more so in the animated sense. So, what do you do when you're met with that? Give him an old punk rock aesthetic looking white girl with blue hair. Jinx Kerr! While their relationship wasn't one that was heavily pushed in season 1, in season 2, you explicitly see romantic elements between the two. Specifically in episode 7, in full display. The perspective I will talk from is one where the viewer could look at this and have the assumption that what's being displayed in this fictional world would be met with similar results in real life, void of actual racial and historical context. That low percentage of interracial marriages and couples isn't low just because it's low, but it ties into how only recently laws had been passed that rectified punitive actions towards interracial marriages following 1967. At least in America, but given how both misrepresented and underrepresented black people are in Western media, there appears to be this idea that these racial differences do not matter at all or can be easily solved in a 90-minute runtime. It then ties into a gradually growing acceptance of interracial mixing at the expense of building and nurturing the respective communities you come from exclusively. I personally don't entirely agree with that, but I can see that point. The same way I can see how cosplaying as Ekko is cosplaying as an African who has an affinity to lean itself towards whiteness despite their own individual merits, trumping any need or necessity to do so. Wild take, I know. Not one I hold, but one people actually have. Ekko, to many, will be a pivotal character for the black guy done right in animation archetype. And in order to ensure you secure the most people look at him as the new emblem for black iconography in media, give him a white girl so you can say to Dr. Umar, see, ain't nothing wrong with this. But the same cannot be said for Miles. Man, ain't nobody trying to see this bullshit, Sharif. See, not only does Miles exist in the same world as us, but he's also from Brooklyn, which is heavily gentrified, but it's still Brooklyn nonetheless. While Miles was created by Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pichelli, the concept of Miles Morales actually began back in 2008. In an interview with former editor-in-chief Axel Alonso, Miles Morales has been in the ideation phase for a few months before Obama was president, where he was going to be a part of this event called Ultimatum, which would be reconstructing the Ultimate Universe. And while they say these weren't for PC reasons, especially given how close it was to Obama's first and second term, a part of my soul just doesn't believe that. He would make his first appearance in Ultimate Comics Fallout Spider-Man No More issue number 4, and then his debut as Spider-Man in Ultimate Comics Spider-Man issue number 1. Since 2011, Miles has been an ever-growing character in popularity.
Out.
Oh good god, it's one of those fuckaboos! Spider-Man, help me! Oh wait, that's me. Understandably deserved, and I am a huge fan of both of these movies and the portrayal of Miles in those movies, but outside of his genius ingenuity, I have never once thought in my life Miles was a good portrayal of a black boy in fiction. The decision to make his mother Hispanic and his father black is a testament by not having both of his parents black, but that's not even the biggest John. But the most glaring punch in your face to the white meat show smack to how much pandering they covertly do with Miles is how his father was a street criminal turned cop who condemns the actions of his brother, the Prowler, who was his partner in crime, and his name is literally Jefferson Morales, formerly known as Jefferson Davis. You know, the same Jefferson Davis that served as a president of the Confederacy in the 19th century. That same Jefferson Davis that was a slaveholder, believing it was the destiny of African Americans to live in bondage and that it was a blessing for them to live as slaves purely for their economic function and gain, therefore serving a social good? I don't want to hear no a name is just a name when you name a black man from Brooklyn after a Confederate president who literally advocated for slaveholder rights. What is we talking about? So to further add to that, you got my man in an interracial relationship coagulating with someone who isn't even black. Where I should clarify, I'm not even criticizing it being a black and non-black Hispanic couple. I'm criticizing how a bunch of non-black people thought it was okay to make his father this way and still have enough to say there's nothing PC about this. The density is densifying because I know you lying, but I'm gonna keep it a buck. With a name like Jefferson Davis, having a black woman as a wife is still all types of wrong. I'm gonna keep it a stack fifth. So yeah, I make a damn large note of his dad having that name and being a cop and being in an interracial relationship because this inclusive incarnation of insanity feeds itself into Miles. But I say that because in the comics, he has never explicitly or with true representation dated a black woman. With the exception of Kamala Khan, who is South Asian, and Barbara Rodriguez, he is a certified Snowbunny Hopper lover.
What the fuck is that?
Of course, in the Spider-Man games, he develops a love interest in Haley Cooper, who is black but doesn't get nearly enough coverage at all. I wonder why. And I'm predominantly talking about his Spider-Verse counterpart. But to those that aspire to be like Miles, once again, like Ekko, they look at this as the model example and representation of a black man in Western animated media, when in fact, your dad's a cop, your mom's Hispanic, you work with the cops, your girl is white, and your dad's girl is a cop. So don't talk to me about representation. We know this black man, white woman trend in media does not exist purely in the animated realm. In fact, it is everywhere. The Best Man Holiday with Neil Long and the white boy, Empire with Andre and the white woman, Tell Me Lies with the black guy and the white woman. Don't tell me why I know about this show, because to the fellas watching this, you should already know the answer as to why I'm watching the show. Hell, even when I was in the viewing for the new Sonic movie, do you know how many ads I saw that had the interracial couple in the whole picnic in the woods, picnic in the park, picnic in the park, in the motherfucking cabin in the woods, in the old, what the fuck? Fuck it, I'm not taking this out. Do you know how many interracial couples I saw where it was a black man and a white woman and a bunch of mixed race babies, but there was no actual scene where they looked like a family? They were just thrown in there to make a point. That's what I'm talking about. The interracial couples here aren't strong narrative points, nor are to be expected to be met with public pushback from the viewers because the historical context is not made important. When the stigma of black women are consistently negative from women who are not black, and even from their own black men, you don't even see them represented in interracial couplings nearly to the same degree as black men and white women. And there's a reason for that, I believe. Here is the FD overlap part. In America, in 2015, according to the Pew Research Data Center, 17% of all marriages were intermarriages. Within those 6 years, it has increased by about 3%, making it roughly around 20% of marriages in the US are interracial. Within these marriages, black men are 2 times more likely than black women to intermarry, but that still makes up an extremely small percentage. Now, all these races have been varying and have very interesting rates when it comes down to who is marrying who. White and Hispanic newlyweds are in the highest percentage when it comes down to intermarrying at 42% per analysis in 2015. Following them are white and Asians at 15%. Asian women more likely to marry out of their race, not just more than Asian men, but every other race within this consensus, followed by Hispanic people. White and black couples only stand at 11% of intermarriage couples, probably increased incrementally within the past several years though. The state that has the highest rate of interracial couples is Hawaii, where Honolulu has the highest rate of interracial marriages, and America at 42%. And in a population of over 1.4 million people, with Asians making up 37% of the ethnic race demographic, followed by white people at 25%, black people make up only 2%. Logic dictates black people ain't the ones leading into breeding out there. These numbers may be different in other diverse countries, but it wouldn't change much of what the key takeaway is, which is that statistically speaking, the most likely race of people that will marry out of their race are whites, Asians, and Hispanic. Then why are black and white couples seen as the poster children for interracial relationships in Western media? More specifically, black men and white women. Why is it that Democrats and leaning Democrats are significantly more likely than Republicans and leaning Republicans to hold a higher approval rating for intermarriages? Why is it that those between 18 and 29 have the highest approval rating for intermarriages? And why is it that those that hold a bachelor degree at 54% maintain that approval rating for intermarriages? Well, I'ma tell you why. Because white people are afraid of an African coup d'etat. No, I said black people ain't even bunny hopping the way you think we are, so they hyperfixate on coup d'etat. No, I said any anniversary of a black and white couple is a coup d'etat. My sons and daughters, while we were waiting in the water, they were waiting in the water. Hey, yo, I sound like Twerk. Spin the revolver, make you a martyr. It's John stupid as hell. Anyway, jokes aside, it is interlinked to deconstructing the identity of the black community. Not just destroying, but installing a different narrative contrary to reality. Given the digital age that we are in, a lot of y'all weirdos perceive everything you see on the internet reflects real life. Of course, these are marriage statistics that do not account for unmarried relationships, hookup culture, and everything else within that realm, but it's still true nonetheless, because the internet is the new reality for many that the idea will increase the already high acceptance and approval of interracial relationships. I get that this sentence can come across as pretty harsh or even closed-minded, but let me explain the context of where interracial relationships should be disapproved. With the likes of the Snowbunny bros, we see interracial couples void of any social or political connection. If that were really true, if there were no ramifications or history to the notion, then this wouldn't even be a video, not even a topic that's been running into the ground. But given the data, we can infer the presentation we see of these interracial couples are designed for manipulative purposes to further disconnect black men and women from each other exclusively. Don't think so? Show me to a level of similar promotion in Western media, a big budget production to similar ubiquity, an Hispanic and South Asian couple in leading roles where the story focuses on integrating their cultures. Show me an East Asian and Southwest Asian or Southeast Asian couple represented in Western media. Hell, show me a Native American with literally anyone for cultural integration purposes. Well, actually. Okay, not the last one. But they do not exist nearly to a similar level. Even Invincible showcases an Asian-black relationship purely cosmetically and nothing else, as Mark will, I don't want to spoil Invincible for the non-comic fans out there, but if you can't guess who he eventually ends up with, then, come on. Side note, in the Invincible comic books, Amber, as you may or may not know, was originally a white woman. And then in the animated show, she is now a black woman. And according to Robert Kirkman, his decision to change the ethnicity and race of the character was because he had a personal belief that he and Ryan Ottley, who was the artist for The Invincible, failed to make the original comic book sufficiently diverse, particularly by modern standards. Now, my issue with this is the fact that not only did they change the race of the characters, which is really and true like a case-by-case basis, how depending on how much you want to be bothered by that. Me personally, it doesn't bother me too much unless their race is an integral aspect to the narrative and the story itself. In this case, their relationship was not predicated on the race of either characters. However, in this particular function, Amber is seemingly closed-minded sometimes, and therefore received a lot of negative feedback from the audience and fans via reception of it. However, in the comic books, Amber is a lot more empathetic and understanding towards Mark and his identity as being a superhero. One of the worst things that came about from this was that it received criticisms from fans of both the comic book and those that haven't read the comic book at all, by stating that Amber in the comics as a white woman was a lot more empathetic, sympathetic, kind, caring, generous, and nurturing towards Mark, his struggles, his problems as a superhero versus a college student, and that duality that he had to suffer through. And then with Amber in the show, she's a lot more closed-minded, aggressive, abrasive, argumentative, and seemingly confrontational, and the association people would have with those attributes is that she's a black woman. Therefore, black women are not as supportive as white women in these particular realms, which just is not the case. Now, this may not be the fault of Robert Kirkman. It'll fall onto the writers on the presentation of that and their lack of awareness on how they actually presented this in the Western world. However, Robert Kirkman's idea to make Amber black for the nature of racial pandering to more modernized social climating, it has a negative effect given how he displayed it, or given how she was displayed and how the writers presented it. If you're going to pander towards the audience, just don't. Especially if the outcome was this. But it's largely black people having to bear the brunt of having their culture be the one that's subjected to cultural intermixing and no one else. And that's because white Western society projects a fallacious image of these very ideas publicly. This isn't something I just think, but it's something that has a line of reasoning to it. Gentrification, destroying and buying out black businesses, redlining, these are things that aren't so covertly done specifically to black people in the Western world. This isn't to say that it exclusively happens to us, but there's a strong attempt to ethnically erase the black identity and communal strength and unity from the West, and one of the most tactical ways to do that is to go for the fundamental source of production, procreation, creating the idea that mixed babies is an accepting notion for collectivism. And while you could argue that these things bridge race relations and cultural exchanges, it can also be true that your own traditions will morph to accommodate the standards of those that are not of your own ethnic group. And however much that bothers you is honestly personal. But this is personal. This is... Trust me, I'm aware of the redundancy of this conversation, and contrary to what people like Dr. Umar says, this really is not the problem he thinks it is. I mean, at some point, you just gotta realize he's just saying some shit.
Masturbation is anti-African.
Shut up! Don't talk to me about my ancestors when I'm beating my meat! What I will say though, is that black men love to be fetishized by other races to literal racist degrees, be they ignorant or naive to the concept or not, and that needs to stop. It's giving slavery, it's giving look at this black woman in a cage with a big ass, it's giving this bullshit.
Oh, you're so handsome.
Thank you. Where you from?
Thailand. I like you.
You like me? I want to come to Thailand. Thailand amazing. That's always a place I wanted to come to.
Welcome to Thailand. You were so handsome, nah.
You want me?
You want chocolate, man?
Oh, you want chocolate, man?
Are you chocolate, man?
Yes, I'm chocolate, man. You look at
What's
me.
up, nigga?
What the fuck?
กูเศร้าอยู่
Why did you...
I'm sorry. I like you. Give me a pregnant right now.
You like me? Why you like me?
BBC.
Oh boy, shut the fuck up, yo. However, There is politics involved when it comes down to the media portrayal of it, and that much is and always will be true. No interracial couple will ever just be there for the sake of being there. It will always be interlaced with a manufactured point, whether it's subverted or not. If you recall in my first video, I mentioned being born black automatically places you in a spectrum of social, economical, and political turmoil, but honestly, the truth is, being born in general does the exact same thing. Class, status, neighborhood, sex, gender, culture, ethnicity, race, you're born into all these things, but certain areas are emphasized more than others. Interracial relationships are never just going to be about two people from different backgrounds falling in love. It is the vertex of two completely different lives and historical backgrounds clashing with each other, and you seek to compromise. No matter what, subconscious or not, you're making a compromise to accept wherever the other person is from, who they are, their family traditions, and you are adhering to levels of conformity. On the big or little screen, these things are amplified tenfold. You cannot say otherwise, because this video, among a plethora of others, prove this. But this video just highlights how there is a central focus on black and white relationships are the ones that have been cursed. Yes, I said cursed, with bearing the responsibility of being the flagship for this political instrument of unity. Ekko and Miles are, simply put, and deny this all you want, but they are writing to adhere to an aspect of white culture and even black culture, and therefore validation depending on how you want to look at it. They are characters that will be used to inspire the mental that black and white couples can just coexist without issue, when the contrary will always prove to be problematic. There will never be a thing of just accepting an interracial couple in media, because that very media needs to make a point, and the point is they are in fact coming from different backgrounds, even if it's not intended. It's just infinitely worse for Miles because his dad is a cop, and the dad of the milk dispenser he be coagulating with is also a cop. So like, no matter what them Twitter losers say, what I say, what Umar says, you gon' love, he gon' love. And despite what's being said in this video, that is okay. If you are an East Asian man and you want to rub upon an Hispanic woman, go do that. If you're an Indian woman and you want yourself a Latino man, hey, spice it up. If you're a white man and you want to marry a black woman, if you're a white man and you want to marry a brown woman, ain't nobody stopping you. And if you're a black man and you want you a Snowbunny, first things first, I want to give out my sympathies towards all the Californians out there that are going through this pressing time, troubling time. I love LA, like y'all have no idea. So this has like affected me personally and like emotionally. So it's rough seeing what's going on out there. However, I'm gonna say this: I'm a man of perspective, and the same ceasefire y'all want to happen in LA, just make sure that same type of vocal cords are as loud as ceasefires everywhere else in the world. You know what I'm talking about? Because the same people that be talking about some, you know what I mean, people got a right to defend themselves, and you see how they be living or they be going through throughout the Christmas period, where they had no homes in Christmas period, you know what I mean, or any period throughout the entire year, and not just this year, just in general. It gives you perspective, especially when us over at the West, we don't really experience those type of things continuously. You know what I mean? It makes you realize just how hard it is. Like, gonna snap at a finger, like your home gonna be gone. The difference is it happens to them intentionally. This was unintentional. So yeah, that's like, I'm sympathetic, but it also gives me like clarity and like perspective, because, you know, for example, James Wood talking about no ceasefire and essentially continuing the G word. Where your house at? Fuck nigga. Yeah, fuck you. Anyway, aside from that, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Any new potential viewers, welcome. I'm not usually this unhinged. I mean, I am, and even if I'm not, who cares? You know what I mean? If this is your first impression, that's what's up. Return subscribers, what's good with y'all? My next video finna come out soon, next month. It's gonna be the one that a few of y'all been waiting for, you know what I mean, since, you know, for a whole year now. That can go like one or two ways, but I'm not gonna say like which way it's going. But yeah, nah, that'll be next month's video, or next video, and I'm looking forward to making that one. I don't feel like rambling anymore. But this year, I'm gonna try and sweep the board, make the best content I can make, most insightful content I can make, entertaining, creative, and really go ahead and up the level this year. I'm gonna try and go ahead and like go full throttle. So that's my goal to this one. I'm gonna try and reach 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That's my goal. 40,000K by the end of the year. So let's go ahead and make that shit happen. But I ain't got nothing else to say. Once again, to the Californians out there, to those in the Middle East and in Asia and Africa, is everyone that suffers through, you know, certain words I can't say on YouTube. Sympathies out there, and still sympathies towards those that have lost those homes. Unless you're a supporter of anti-ceasefire politics, and in that case, fuck you and fuck your home. Like, fuck your 5 properties that you didn't even go inside. So yeah, like, you know what I mean? To the folk that was just buying up lands and property and compounding that shit, fuck y'all. I don't care. But everyone else, working folk, the decent people out there, yeah, no, we gonna get through it. Anyway, I'm gonna catch you on the next video. Back to the stars I go.